It was just before the end of my sophomore year. I got together with Ethan. This college romance came a bit late, but it suddenly drove me insane when I wholeheartedly invested in this relationship. Ethan suddenly handed me a leukemia diagnosis. From that day on, I gave it my all. I even gave up my studies. I worked desperately to earn money in the end. I exhausted myself to the point of ending up in the emergency room. Over these 5 years, I transferred a total of $500,000 in medical fees to him. I just hoped he could stay in this world a little longer. But Ethan was actually not sick. He pretended to be ill to deceive me. He was nothing but a fraud. He even tried to sell me to traffickers. When the university clubs were recruiting new members, I chose the broadcasting station without hesitation. This wasn't because I was majoring in broadcasting, but because during those 3 years in high school, my little pocket radio always accompanied me. It helped me get through the tough days without a phone. I often imagined, one day, I hope to sit in a grand live broadcast studio, let my voice reach everyone's ears. Although my voice isn't particularly sweet, I studied computer science. This made me realize that dream is almost impossible for me in this lifetime. There's nothing I can do. I can only take a step back. I treat the school's broadcasting station as my last chance to realize my dream. It was there that I met Ethan. He was a year above me. When I joined the broadcasting station, he was already the most popular host of the song request show. Ethan's partner was about to graduate. As the newcomer, I naturally took over that position. From the initial nervousness to gradually becoming skilled and at ease, Ethan sat right next to me, patiently helping me and constantly cheering me on. He gently corrected my pronunciation mistakes over and over again and stayed up late to help me prepare the scripts for the next day. With his help, our teamwork has become more and more tacit in the eyes of some classmates. We have become the most popular couple in the school. Suddenly, it seems like we have become the focus of the school. I have to admit, Ethan is indeed quite handsome. If I say I've never had a crush on Ethan, that would definitely be a lie. He is good-looking, with a gentle personality as a senior. He sits next to me every day and laughs and talks with me. He even helps me voluntarily. With a senior like this, which girl wouldn't like him? But I know, the most important thing right now is not to have a sweet romance with a handsome senior, but to study hard, to fight for a beautiful future for myself. After all, coming from a small county to a big city, my future choices are actually quite limited. The broadcasting station is just a little diversion in life. Preparing for graduate school is my real focus. Ethan is a handsome senior. There has never been a shortage of girls around me. It seems I am not his ideal choice either. But what surprised me was, he seems to have a bit of interest in me as well. He often gives me little gifts, and sometimes jokes with other classmates, implying that we have a special relationship. One day before the summer vacation of sophomore year, there was originally no plan for a live broadcast. But Ethan walked into the broadcast room alone. He turned on the school's loudspeaker and spoke into the microphone. "Emily, I like you. I don't want to suppress my feelings any longer. From today on, would you be my girlfriend? I promise you, from this moment on, I will never let you suffer any grievances. I want to make you the happiest girl in the world." After saying all this, my favorite song slowly started to play. Ethan stood in front of all the teachers and students with a slightly off-key, nervous voice. He finished singing my favorite song. Listen to the cheers rising and falling around me. My eyes gradually become moist. I feel like I'm immersed in it all. At this age, I think very few girls can resist such a romantic confession. So, under the envious gaze of all my classmates, I accepted his confession. We officially got together after falling in love. Ethan's performance remained impeccable after the school started. I'm in my junior year. He's in his senior year. In his senior year, he also started getting busy with internships and work. One day, he said to me, "Emily, this is my first month's salary, although it's only 800 yuan. I want to give it all to you. You must be quite tired from class. I heard you mention before that your back always hurts. I bought you a cushion online. It's already been delivered. Don't forget to pick it up. Dear, this Valentine's Day, I have to work overtime. I can't stay with you anymore. This time next year, I will definitely give you a big surprise. My dear, you have to believe me. I will create a beautiful future for us. Every little detail between Ethan and me. I have carefully noted them all in my diary. When I flip through the diary, those bits and pieces make me sigh repeatedly. I'm really so lucky in college. I met an enviable, perfect boyfriend. This must be the blessing from my past life. Now, I can't help but start imagining the beautiful days we'll live together in the future. When we get married, I will give him a chubby baby. At that time, we will be a happy family of 3, living sweetly and happily. But these beautiful imaginations, all shattered when my junior year started in the spring semester. When Ethan walked up to me with a serious expression. He handed me a diagnosis report for leukemia. I was taken aback for a moment, looking at the words on the list, muttering to myself, white blood disease. My whole body is shaking. I stare at the diagnosis in disbelief. Baby, let's break up with me like this. I can't possibly give you the future you want. My upcoming treatment costs. Our family can't afford it, since we already know the result. No matter how hard I try, it won't help. I can't drag down 2 families because of myself. I can't do such a thing. Ethan's eyes glistened with tears. He suddenly snatched the diagnosis from my hands. He said softly, I have imagined countless times the moment I put the wedding dress on you myself. But now, those imaginations have turned into bubbles. If there is fate, we will meet again in the next life. In this life, I wish you happiness. Ethan tightly hugged me, who was already crying and unable to speak. Then he turned and walked away. I watched him gradually walk further away. All the moments between us flashed in my mind like a movie. Some people, once missed, they are gone forever. When the song Ethan once sang for me echoed in my ears again, I gathered my courage and rushed to catch up with him. Ethan, stop right there. I haven't given up yet. How can you give up first? Ethan stopped in his tracks, with a faint, bitter smile on his face. He looked at me and said, no one wants to give up. But where will the money come from? I'll handle this matter. You don't need to worry about the money. I'll immediately process my leave of absence and go to work to earn money for your treatment. I did not hesitate. I nodded firmly and said, rest assured, even if it costs me my life, I will definitely save you from danger. Ethan was taken aback by my words. He was stunned. It's like being struck by lightning, he said in surprise. Emily, are you crazy? You're only a junior now. Your goal is to take the postgraduate entrance exam. You should focus on your studies, instead of dropping out to work and make money for someone with no future. For someone with no future, sacrificing another person's bright future. Is it worth it? This kind of immoral act. I, Ethan, would rather die than agree. Despite Ethan's strong objections, my determination remained steadfast. The next morning at dawn, I rushed to school to complete the leave of absence procedures. Braving the biting cold wind, I rode my bike for over an hour. To Ethan's rented cabin, I told him, I have already taken a leave of absence. I'm going out to find a job right away. What you need to do now is to rest assured. Focus on your treatment. Don't think too much. Leukemia is no longer an incurable disease. Many people can be cured. I believe you will be one of them. Wait until you recover. I'm still waiting for you to personally put the wedding dress on me. At this moment, Ethan was already crying and couldn't speak. He held me tightly. That night, I gave him my most precious thing. However, in the days that followed, the level of difficulty far exceeded my imagination. Although I am studying at a key national university, but because I took a leave of absence in my junior year, I don't have a graduation certificate. I couldn't find a decent job. In desperation, I could only start from the bottom-level jobs. I was busy every day, serving dishes, washing dishes, doing promotions, handing out flyers, and setting up street stalls. I wished I could spend all 24 hours doing part-time jobs, because they were part-time jobs. Each work location was different. To save 2 yuan on bus fare, I often rode my bike to cover a distance of more than 10 kilometers. Sometimes I finished setting up the stall late at night. I'm so exhausted that I don't even have the strength to return to my rental place. I can only pack the small accessories from the street stall into my bag. I just find a random bench at a bus stop to make do for the night. The next morning, I can catch the first bus and continue working at the fast food restaurant. For the next 3 years or so, I lived like this almost every day. I never really had a good night's sleep, and I didn't eat anything decent either, because I was working so hard to earn money. My young body also started to give in. At first, it was just sore back and aching waist. Then my stomach and gallbladder started to hurt too. Every time I got sick, I would just drink a few sips of cold water and grit my teeth to tough it out. I didn't even dare to go to the hospital. I knew very well. Every extra penny spent means one less chance for Ethan to survive, for Ethan's future. I had to do this. Every time I transferred money to Ethan, the records kept increasing. His health seemed to gradually improve, just when I felt relieved to finally see a glimmer of hope after all these years of effort. An unexpected incident suddenly occurred. Once again, it changed my life. I was riding my bike to the next part-time job location. A motorcycle suddenly came rushing in from the right. Thud! I heard a clear, muffled sound. My body suddenly lifted into the air. I wasn't sure how long I was in the air, but when I landed again, I surprisingly felt no pain at all. A wave of dizziness washed over me, but I felt a sense of relief inside. This time, I felt like I could finally get a good night's sleep. When I opened my eyes again, I saw the white ceiling of a hospital. My whole body was stiff and in pain. I wanted to move a little. I looked down. There was an Roman 4 needle still inserted in the back of my hand. I gently frowned. I looked around. A strange man was sleeping soundly by my bedside. He was sleeping very peacefully. He's still snoring. I want to wake him up. But seeing his dark circles, I held back. He is about the same age as me, yet he looks so exhausted. He must be a hard-working kid, too. You're awake. Just then, the boy opened his eyes. He looked at me shyly. He asked, Is this the hospital? What happened? I paused for a moment and asked him in confusion. I'm sorry. I was rushing to work earlier. I was afraid of being late, so I left in a hurry. I didn't notice you. Don't worry. I will cover your medical expenses and lost wages. I will compensate you for all your losses. The boy looked apologetic. His face showed a hint of redness. His expression was serious yet delicate. He said, Forget about the medical expenses. Just transfer the money directly to me. I really don't have time to waste. I smiled at the boy. I quickly pulled out the dripping needle. I endured the pain and got off the hospital bed. I asked him, What are you in such a hurry for? You have more than just external injuries from the accident. There are other issues inside your body. The doctor said you need to rest well. The boy seemed more worried about my health than I was. He immediately reached out to grab me. Rest? Not yet. Wait until my boyfriend gets better. I will definitely rest well then. I politely declined his suggestion. I shook my head slightly. Your boyfriend? What happened? The boy was taken aback for a moment. He cautiously asked, I have had leukemia for several years. Right now is a critical period for treatment. I can't afford to delay for even a moment. I smiled and nodded. I reached for the phone on the bed. Slap. I'm too weak. I couldn't hold on for a moment. The phone fell to the ground. I'll help you pick it up. The boy quickly bent down when he picked up the phone. He suddenly froze. What's wrong? I looked at the dazed boy. I felt a bit confused, so I asked him, This boy is your boyfriend? The boy looked at my phone's home screen. He pointed at the photo and said, In the photo, he was hugging me standing under the school dormitory. We were laughing happily. That's right. He's quite handsome, right? I took the phone and made a joke. You said he has leukemia. The boy gently frowned, looking at me. His tone was filled with doubt. Yeah, you know him. I noticed the boy looked a bit confused, so I curiously asked him a question. Do you know me? Actually, it's not really knowing. The boy lowered his head and thought for a moment. Then he spoke. Yesterday, when I was working at the bar, it seems I've seen this person before. Where did you see him? Upon hearing the boy's words, I was momentarily stunned. I turned to look at him. Drinks, bar, it's that Mick's bar. The boy seemed startled by my attitude. He was stuttering while speaking. Mick's is the largest bar here. It's also one of the biggest nightclubs. Every time Ethan and I meet, he always looks pale and speaks listlessly. I shook my head and said firmly, It's impossible. You must have mistaken him for someone else. Ethan is so seriously ill. How could he go to a nightclub? He's currently receiving treatment back home. How could this happen here? Could it be a case of mistaken identity? The boy opened my phone screen again. He carefully looked at the photos inside. Then he seriously told me, It's impossible. Look at the obvious mole at the corner of his mouth. I definitely won't mistake the person. Looking at the boy's serious expression, I was stunned once again. This boy seems quite sincere. He doesn't look like someone trying to deceive me. You wouldn't be trying to avoid losing money, would you? Are you making excuses to fool me? I started to have some doubts too, but soon, I still chose to trust Ethan, who I've loved for so long. If I don't even trust my own boyfriend, what kind of person am I? Don't worry about the money. Add me on WeChat. I can transfer you the money right now. Have you ever thought about it? Maybe your boyfriend is deceiving you. The boy's expression remained serious. He even took out his phone casually. That moment, I felt like time suddenly stopped. If Ethan really lied to me, then what am I now? Impossible. We love each other so much. How could he lie to me? I shook my head vigorously. Denial of that boy. Also denying the heart that is already a bit shaken at this moment. Ring, 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 ring. At that moment, my phone suddenly rang. It's a call from Ethan. I was startled. I quickly took the phone from the boy's hand. Honey, didn't you say you would transfer the money to me in the morning? Why hasn't it arrived yet? Ethan sounded very anxious on the phone. It seems like this money is what I owe him, I said. Ethan, I had a car accident this morning. I'm still in the hospital now. Hearing Ethan's questioning, I felt quite wronged inside. I quickly explained into the phone, I don't care what happened to you this morning. You can still talk now. That means the problem isn't too serious. You need to transfer the money quickly. I'm in a hurry to pay for the medical fees. If you don't pay soon, the treatment will stop. This is a matter of life and death. Hurry up. Ethan hung up before I finished speaking. He rushed to hang up the phone. I heard the beeping sound on the phone. Suddenly, tears streamed down my face. You want to go back to the bed and rest for a bit? The boy looked at me with concern. He even handed me some tissue. No, I don't need it. I don't have that much time. I felt in my pocket. I handed him a business card and said, my WeChat is on it. Add me later. Just transfer the money directly. I'm almost late for my next part-time job. I need to hurry over. After saying that, I tidied up my clothes and prepared to leave the ward. You work so hard for him every day. Does your boyfriend know? The boy didn't pursue me this time. Stand still. He asked my back. I was stunned again. After a while, I gently nodded and said, it doesn't matter whether he knows or not. As long as he can get better, that's all that matters. Ding! My phone suddenly rang. I opened it to take a look. It was a message. I'll transfer you $50,000, $20,000 for your boyfriend's medical treatment. Keep the remaining $30,000 for yourself. Take a good rest for a few days. The boy sighed. He gently shook his head. Thanks. Thanks. I was momentarily speechless. In the end, I gave the boy a warm smile. You are so kind. You will definitely meet a beautiful girlfriend. I didn't listen to the boy's advice. I directly transferred $40,000 to Ethan, the remaining $10,000. I'm not leaving myself an escape route. I'm worried that if Ethan suddenly needs money urgently, I can't access his bank card right away. This money could come in handy to help in an emergency. I'm still carrying all these scars. I continue to work odd jobs. I don't know if Ethan's treatment has entered a new stage or if his condition is getting worse. Recently, he has been asking me for money more and more often, and the amounts are significantly larger than before. In the past, I could barely manage, but now, even if I don't sleep, it's becoming hard to cope. These days, I'm surviving on just steamed buns and tap water every day. Even with such simple food, I can't afford to fill my stomach every time. I did some calculations privately over the past few years. I've sent him about $500,000 in medical expenses. I checked online. If everything goes well with his illness, another $100,000 should be basically enough. Every time I think about this, I felt a lot more relaxed inside. These difficult days, finally, it's almost over, but I never expected. When I returned to the rental house again, Ethan, who should have been at home recovering, was unexpectedly in the room. He saw me and smiled as he said, "Wife, you're back." Ethan suddenly appeared in front of me. I felt a mix of emotions. I didn't know whether to be happy or angry. He didn't look too well. He had lost quite a bit of weight. It seems he has been going through a tough time lately. Why aren't you at home resting and recovering? What are you doing here? I was actually quite happy inside, but I still put on a dissatisfied expression. I really missed you too much. So I took the opportunity between 2 chemotherapy sessions to sneak over to see you. Ethan still wore an irresistible smile. He gently patted my head. In this moment, my heart was touched once again. You promised me, after watching me, go back and focus on your treatment immediately. Okay, I nestled against his chest. The sound of his heartbeat reached my ears. Wife, me, Ethan looked at me. The words were on the tip of my tongue, but I swallowed them back. What's wrong with you? I looked at the expression on his face, feeling a bit uneasy inside. Ethan held me tightly. Teardrops streamed down uncontrollably. He said, Wife, I don't want to treat this illness anymore. You're too tired. I can't be so selfish. At that moment, Ethan's previous attitude towards me, I no longer held grudges. He got angry with me in the hospital last time. He must have been holding in a lot of grievances to act that way. He must still love me. Ethan, we have held on for so long. Victory is right in front of us. How can one easily give up? I held onto Ethan tightly. My tears flowed uncontrollably. But I still need money for treatment. I found a suitable match. but the transplant, surgery, and post-recovery will cost over $300,000. Where are we going to get that much money? Ethan shouted loudly. It was as if he was complaining about the unfairness of fate. Over $300,000. When I heard that number, it felt like my heart was hit hard. I immediately felt crushed. This means I have to endure at least 3 more years of this life. Even if I can grit my teeth and get through these 3 years, can Ethan's body hold up? If he can't make it, won't all my efforts over the years be in vain? Even though I was already despairing inside, I still pretended to be strong. I nodded firmly and said, "Ethan, don't worry, even if it costs me my life. I will definitely help you earn that money. Wife, you work part-time like this every day. Your body is almost unable to handle it. How much longer can you hold on?" Ethan sighed. He shook his head and said, "If you could work there, there might still be a chance." "Where? What place are you talking about?" I suddenly saw a glimmer of hope. My mood immediately lightened a lot. I told her, "I have a friend who owns a bar. They are hiring champagne girls. The base salary is over $10,000 a month, plus commissions on drinks. If you could work there, you could save up enough money in less than half a year. But you are a student from a prestigious university. You probably look down on this job." Ethan smiled wryly and shook his head. His eyes were filled with disappointment. Upon hearing the word bar, I was taken aback for a moment. Then I asked him, "Ethan, are you referring to the mix bar?" Ethan was stunned for a moment. "Look at me," nodding with some confusion. "That's right. It's the mix bar." "How do you know that?" I heard Ethan's answer. I was shocked. Could it be that the boy I met at the hospital last time was telling me the truth? I looked at Ethan's serious expression. I couldn't help but smile. Our city only has this bar with such treatment. I work outside every day. I know at least this much. If you really have such a friend, I'm willing to give it a try. Once you recover your health, we'll find a good job together. My heart was in turmoil, but I still put on a nonchalant expression. "That would be great. If you work there, you won't have to work so hard." Ethan looked very happy. He quickly took out his phone and said, "I'll call my friend right now. I'll have him arrange an interview for tonight. Mix bar. I've heard of this place, but I've never been inside. This is the best bar in the province. I heard the owner is also the richest person in the province. I used to think, after graduating from college, I could enjoy my youth in a place like this, living carefree days. But now, I feel like I don't even have the right to glance at the bar's entrance. It's already dark outside. What surprised me is, the bar is even darker inside under the dim lights. The deafening DJ music keeps playing inside the bar. Men and women are unabashedly exuding a sense of hormones. Looking at these various people, my heart wavered a bit. Don't worry, my wife. You're here to be the champagne darling, not to serve drinks. I won't put you in a difficult position." Ethan seems to sense my hesitation. He squeezed my hand tightly and asked, "That champagne baby and the hostess, is there any difference?" I nervously looked at Ethan. I couldn't help but voice my inner doubts. He said with some difficulty, "I'm not too sure about that either. When I meet my friend later, let him explain it to you." Ethan looked a bit nervous. He even stuttered while speaking. Before long, we arrived at a private room deep inside the bar. Ethan stood at the door. He knocked on the door first. Then he said inside, "Brother Peng, I brought my girlfriend. Come in." Brother Peng shouted from inside. His tone was indifferent, but no one came out to greet us. "Honey, you go in and have a good interview. I'll wait for your good news outside," Ethan said to me with a smile. Then he pointed to the dimly lit room. "Ethan, are you not coming in with me?" I quickly grabbed Ethan's hand. I asked nervously, "Wife, it's not really appropriate to bring family to the interview, right? Besides, I know Peng Ji. I have to avoid suspicion, right?" Ethan wore a slightly impatient smile. "All right then. I'll go in first." I nodded gently at him. Then I pushed open the door to the private room with force. Ethan hurriedly walked out from the hallway before I fully entered. It seemed like he didn't want to stay a moment longer. He asked, "You are Ethan's girlfriend?" The room was pitch black. A middle-aged man sitting in the center of the sofa spoke up. Except for this person called Peng Ji, there were also 7 or 8 tall, strong men in the room. Each of them had a robust build. They had large tattoos on their arms and legs. There are large tattoos on both the arms and legs. I had only seen scenes like this on television before, even though the DJ's music in the bar is deafening. But the moment I closed the door to the private room, the entire world seemed to fall silent in an instant. This soundproofing is really impressive. I couldn't help but admire it in my heart, although I couldn't see the man's face clearly. I still politely responded to him. Yes, I'm Ethan's girlfriend. My name is Emily. Ethan wasn't lying to me. This girl indeed has a certain charm. Peng Ji looked at me. A slight, unnatural smile appeared on his face. He also nodded slightly. I hesitated for a moment and said, Peng Ji, I think. I might not be suited for this job. Excuse me. At that moment, I also felt that things were not looking good. I bowed to the middle-aged man and turned to leave. But the middle-aged man said, Young lady, this is Peng Ji's territory. You can't just come and go as you please. If I want to leave, I will leave. As soon as I turned around, a large hand suddenly grabbed my arm, leaving me unable to move in an instant. Peng Ji, me. I was suddenly surrounded by fear, facing a room full of strong men. I was so nervous that I couldn't speak. What do you mean? Peng Ji said to me with a cold smile. You really think Ethan brought you here just to help you find a job? Things have come to this point. There's no harm in being honest with you. Ethan has long sold you to me. We brothers have already paid the money for tonight. I spent a full 300,000. If you didn't get the money, remember to ask Ethan for it, provided that you can still find him. Peng Ji's expression made my heart tighten. My legs went weak, and I collapsed directly onto the ground. Impossible, impossible. Ethan loves me so much, he can't possibly sell me out. I know in my heart that this is true, but I'm still unwilling to accept this fact. This girl is really confused. Others have already sold you out. You still not believe it? Brother Peng took out his phone, opened a video, placed it in front of me and said, Watch this, and you'll understand everything. In the video, Ethan was excitedly sitting at the gambling table, with a smug smile on his face. See what a successful man looks like. A successful man is just like me. With a few tricks, I can make my girlfriend keep giving me money to spend. Even if she doesn't go to school, she still has to support my gambling. Clatter, the dice landed. Ethan sighed. This luck is really bad. I lost again. Then, Ethan in the video took out his phone and called me, said loudly, Wife, didn't we agree that you would transfer the money to me in the morning? Why has it still not arrived? Seeing this, although I was mentally prepared, I still broke down completely. I was hit by a car. I couldn't even dare to take a day off. I still have to transfer the medical expenses to him. He's spending my money lavishly in the casino. At this moment, I feel distressed. I want to cry but can't. Not even a single tear. My whole body is trembling. I can't say a word. I don't understand. The person who once loved me so much. Why would they treat me like this? The one who wasn't afraid of being punished by the school also gave me a romantic confession in college. Where have they gone now? Rip. The sound of clothes being torn apart is heard. Peng Ji looks excited. He suddenly rips apart the little suit I carefully prepared. Truly worthy of graduating from a prestigious university. Their aura is just different from those who accompany drinks. He said, This money was well spent. Peng Ji stood in front of me. He was tidying his clothes while staring at me. You have good luck today. I've finished. And there are others waiting. Today will definitely be thrilling for you. I looked at those guys about to pounce, but I didn't even have the strength to resist. Ethan, it's you. You ruined my life. I felt despair. I've already decided to end my life after this is over, right in front of Ethan. My life has been ruined like this by Ethan. What meaning is there to continue? He said with a smile. I'm here. Peng Ji shouted out. His rough stubble almost touched me, at that moment, with a thud. The door to the private room was suddenly slammed open. A gentle and familiar voice suddenly came from outside the door. Don't move. I've already called the police. I suddenly went dark in front of my eyes. I slowly lost consciousness. When I wake up again, I still see that familiar ceiling. There's still in Roman 4 hanging from my arm. You're awake. That familiar voice rang in my ears once more. I slightly turned my head. I saw the face of that boy from last time. It was still so familiar. I tried to smile at him. I gently nodded. He continued speaking. Then I remembered. I haven't introduced myself yet. My name is Chris. Chris still had a gentle smile on his face. It made people feel particularly at ease. Thanks. I felt a bit better. I barely managed to say 2 words. No need to thank me. I think anyone would do the same in this situation. Chris shook his head slightly. He casually checked the needle in my arm. How did you know I was in that box? I squinted and thought for a moment. I asked the question that was on my mind. Didn't I tell you? I work part-time at this bar. Yesterday, when your boyfriend brought you into the bar, I saw you both. Later, I found out your boyfriend left you alone in the private room. I felt something was off, so I called the police. I really didn't expect this. I still arrived too late. If only I had come a little earlier, you wouldn't have had to suffer like this." Chris looked at me with a hint of regret. He sighed deeply. "It's not too late. It's just right now." I looked at him with deep gratitude. If he had entered the private room earlier, I wouldn't have seen the video that Brother Peng showed me, and I wouldn't have discovered what Ethan was doing behind my back. It seems everything was arranged beforehand. Everything is just perfect. "Oh, don't worry. The people who attacked you that day in the private room have been arrested. They are currently confessing. No bad guys will get away." How could Chris know what I'm thinking? He had a hint of confusion on his face, but he continued to comfort me. "So, what about Ethan?" I took a deep breath and turned to ask Chris, "What's up?" Chris answered somewhat awkwardly, "Sorry, he ran away." Chris looked at me a bit disappointed, but soon he said lightly, "Don't worry, he will get what he deserves. Of course, I believe you." I looked at his somewhat clumsy comfort and smiled. Then I curiously changed the topic and asked, "By the way, you always say you work part-time at a bar. What exactly do you do there?" Chris looked at me a bit shyly and gently shook his head, saying, "I'm working part-time as a boss this bar. Actually, it's my dad's property. This hospitalization is the longest I've ever stayed." I didn't expect it either, to stay in the hospital for almost 3 months. During these 3 months, I not only got my almost failing body back to health, but I feel healthier than before. During this time, Chris came to see me almost every day. He not only covered all my medical expenses, but also brought my favorite food every time he visited. I refused his kindness multiple times, but he insisted that taking care of me was his responsibility, because it happened in his bar. In the end, I accepted his help. During this time, I noticed that his gaze towards me seemed a bit different, but I felt a little anxious inside. I didn't dare to think too much. I always subconsciously avoided his gaze. Chris doesn't seem to mind my avoidance at all. He still comes to keep me company whenever he has the chance. The day I was about to be discharged, Chris mysteriously walked over to me and said, "Emily, I have a surprise for you. Do you want to see it?" I was taken aback for a moment. Then I nodded. He has given me so many surprises. I had no idea what other surprises awaited me. Chris took out his phone. He made a video call to a stranger on WeChat. After a while, the other party answered the video call. They didn't say anything. Instead, they turned the camera to one side. Now a small yard appeared on the screen. I couldn't tell exactly where it was. There were more than a dozen wolf dogs in the yard. Various cages of different sizes were placed on the ground. In one of the cages, I saw a face I would never forget for the rest of my life. "Ethan, what is going on?" I stared at Ethan in the cage. His face was full of confusion. At this time, Ethan is so thin that he is just skin and bones, being naked, covered in bloodstains. There is a long knife scar on his back, occasionally oozing blood. It seems like it was just stitched up not long ago. This gambler, not only did you lose all your hard-earned money, still owes over $1 million in usury in the country. I can't stay in the country anymore. He doesn't know where he got the news from. Secretly crossed the border into a small southeastern country following someone. He originally thought he could make a lot of money here, did not expect to fall into endless suffering. Chris stared at Ethan on the screen, full of dissatisfaction. Wife, come and help me. I understand that I was wrong. I did not do it right." Ethan seems to have heard my voice. He shouted at the camera, "Wife, please hurry and transfer the money. They said only 200,000. Then I can leave, otherwise the merchants here will sell me as a part. I have already had 1 kidney removed. They also said they are going to remove half of my liver next week." I watched Ethan desperately pretending to be pitiful in the camera. I have no feelings at all in my heart. On the contrary, I find it a bit funny. I think to myself, "Ethan, you now know what despair means, right? When you threw me into the private room that day, have you ever thought about my feelings?" I looked at Ethan in the cage, tears streaming down his face, smiled coldly. He said, "Wife, I know I did wrong, but I also can't help it. As long as you save me, I am willing to do anything for you in this lifetime. Wife, for the sake of our long-standing relationship, please help me out." Seeing Ethan's desperate look, I gave a cold smile. I said loudly to the screen, "Hello, how much is his heart worth? I've made up my mind. I just want to see what color this guy's heart is. What color is it, really?" Ethan let out a painful scream. "Ah, no." Chris immediately hung up the phone. Then he asked, "Do you feel better now?" Chris looked at me gently. He asked softly, "Phew." I suddenly felt at ease. I said gratefully, "Thank you." Chris's surprise pleased me very much. I nodded gently. How did you find this guy's whereabouts? Chris looked at me mysteriously. Gently place your fingers on your lips. He said in a low voice, You think my dad became the richest man in the province for nothing? 3 months later, I returned to school. With Chris's help, I successfully completed the re-enrollment procedures. I returned to university to continue my studies. After the first day of classes, I walked out of the teaching building. I saw Chris standing there with a smile. He said to me, Emily, will you be my girlfriend? I hesitated for a moment, but in the end, I rushed towards him. In his arms, I felt that long-lost warmth, warm like sunshine. I believe Chris won't become another Ethan. There will definitely be a better future for us.